Hello everybody, it has been quite some time since the last video. The reason it's taken this long for this thing to come out is it's been a mixture of my job becoming super busy and me accidentally losing 30 pages of the script. All of this combined has made for a really hard time to get motivated, but I'm back, and because of it, I'm going to cover more content than I was before in the initial draft. We've got a hefty video here. So let's get started with a quick recap of the events thus far. In 2002, a boy named Ben was the first experiment in digitizing human consciousness into a copy of Majora's Mask. He was a fanatic of the game, and always wanted to be like his hero Link. So the people responsible injected his consciousness into the Elegy statue, a being unable to exert its own will without external interference. Sometime later, a college sophomore comes into contact with the same cartridge Ben was injected into. He records his experience and uploads it to a YouTube channel he co-owned with a friend called Traducible. His experience with the game ends with his own digitization at the hands of the father, as the world inside the game begins to corrupt and decay. Sometime even later, a woman named Sarah wakes up inside of a mysterious hotel with no idea how she got there. She's the successor to a collection of consciousnesses from what's known as the St. Louis incident, who has gotten herself digitized. Sarah chooses to be more patient with her actions in the hotel, and ends up coming into contact with the very same cartridge that Ben was inserted to and Traducible played. She finds the world at its last legs and chooses to heal Ben's soul through the Song of Healing. In doing so, she downloads the memories of all the people trapped within the game and channels it into a new mask that turns her into a character from an older, more experienced version. Sarah plays the Song of Time and reverses the corruption the father brought onto the world and ends up in a state before Traducible ever touched the cartridge. Although the people inside are still trapped as they always have been, routed to their programming, but for a short moment they seem to have an awareness of their previous nightmarish experience. Here, Sarah meets up with Matt, a moon child who was previously considered dead and also digitized in the game, who tells her that she's this world's last hero, and that their only hope is to tackle the father in his own domain by utilizing the same glitch that gave Ben autonomy during Traducible's coverage, the Fourth Day glitch. The two agree to begin their journey to stop the father. And with that resolution, Sarah leaves the clock tower to find an ambush by two of the father's warriors. After clearing them out, she makes her way to East Clocktown and we resume. On July 12th, we got a premiere for the new video, the Moon Children.wmv. The thumbnail showed Sarah in a white void similar to that we've seen in Children.wmv, with the Odolwa moonchild in the distance. The description of this video is as follows. Sarah, guided by the consensus, delves deeper into the haunted cartridge and has a chance encounter with the mysterious child. Meanwhile, the father continues to slowly gain power over the world, beginning his corruption. The winning choices from the poll determine the consensus' direction in guiding Sarah's actions. The tags are Traducible, Ben, drowned; Matt, Moon Children, Sarah, the father, Ben, haunted cartridge, Zelda, Majora's Mask, haunted Majora's Mask. In the video proper, we start off with the normal intro with Rosa's speech playing in the background as per the norm with the recap footage of the last hero.wmv and the results of our vote, showing that we voted to go to the Stockpot Inn, Romani Ranch, and Snowhead. Right here we see that things are off. The inn is filled with mysterious purple smoke, and the only sounds that accompany are the clock ticking on the wall. Sarah's motionless until the error sound plays. It's unsure why it plays here. My best guess is the father trying to directly communicate with Sarah, but let's continue forward. And now we get the bongo bongo sound as further evidence toward the father's interruption. A quick side note before we begin this conversation. The background music here is a custom track made by Badub from his custom Ocarina of Time soundtrack. This one is titled Temple of Earth. So here, these two lines are important because it seems that this Moonchild, or the Moon Children in general, know about Sarah personally. At least, if we're still running on the Sarah Lawman theory. Which has just recently come together with new information. On August 23rd, a player of the original game came forward saying they had the original newspaper that was sent out to the top 50 donators. User Goht provided clear pictures of the original article in the Fate letter. In this, by using the blacklight, we can confirm that the words underneath the redacted parts are Philip, Sarah, and redacted. It's unknown if these plans for these names have changed over the 8 years since, but it is very curious that now we know at one time a Sarah Lawman was intended to be a character. So, taking that information, if she was partially responsible for the murder/suicide that the article talks about, then these lines here could be the Moon Children letting Sarah know that they know. So there's definitely a lot of significance here with this line. This seems to set up the scale of the situation we're in. Sarah at the end of the day is a pawn, just as the Moon Children are. They form their own consensus just as we do with Patreon. If their queen is the father, who would ours be? This conversation almost seems to imply that Matt is. And immediately after we see the Happy Mask Salesman's face flash across the Moonchild's, giving us the confirmation of their allegiance. And here we get some text in the background, almost as if it were the inner desires of the Moonchild peeking through the cracks. It says, "Don't follow me." What this means, we'll get to eventually. We zoom back in and Sarah goes to investigate the stockpot inn, now that the purple fog is gone. What's interesting here is a command prompt opens up, and we see the player's choice inserted as the sound effect that plays when you play the inverted Song of Time happens. Sarah enacts another pro-gamer strat and clips behind the Skulltula. She finds a running Moonchild and the game crashes, restarts, and we can see the distorted image of the father on the title screen. An interesting note is that Sarah's file here shows that there is 24 masks collected. I'll bring this back up again later. We enter back into Dawn of the First Day as we hear an ominous new custom track. It's got beats similar to Inside the Deku Tree from Ocarina of Time and the percussion from the beginning of the Snowhead Mountain track, but I have looked closer at it and confirmed this is an entirely custom track. It has no source of in-game music. We continue on until Tattle checks out the Redeads, confirming that they are in fact the townspeople changed by the father to further halt Sarah's progress. Now, this scene here initially confused me. The Sun Song shouldn't work here, because we saw Juducible use it in Children.wmv. It wasn't until I spoke to Zedregex on the Discord who informed me that the Sun Song acted the way it does in both instances is because of the presence of the 4th day glitch. In Children.wmv, the game was in a state where the 4th day glitch was active, as obviously Juducible had performed the 4th day glitch in his very first chance he got back in day 4.wmv. Whereas Sarah here is starting with a blank slate, so it works as normally intended and freezes the redeads. But it also advances us to the night of the first day. Sarah makes it back to the Stockpot Inn, but in this time, she follows the Odolwa kid's advice. Don't follow me. She doesn't follow where she previously saw him before, and instead makes a beeline for where the father didn't want her going before. There is no Skulltula, and she finds a piece of heart, presumably from the Odolwa child. Matt here then implies that if we get the hearts of all of the Moon Children, we'll be able to save everyone. This line here almost guarantees Sarah's role in this game is set in stone as a digital inhabitant, just like the other characters we've seen before. We're no longer a being that's inside the hotel, unless we're dragged out by outside means. Our decision to play the game until the end has solidified our will. But so much to the point where I doubt we'd be able to make the choice to go back to the hotel even if we were prompted. We get the command to explore Romani Ranch, and right here as Sarah leaves the Stockpot Inn, we can see that the Goht Moonchild is spying on Sarah in the distance. Sarah begins to make her way to the ranch, and as she does, the Patreon update for this week holds a summary of the video's events. Some important clarifications we learn is that the game freezing up and resetting is confirmed to be due to the father's influence, and not a random byproduct of the corruption. It also reveals that Romani Ranch was chosen over Snowhead due to a time-sensitive event happening at the ranch. And this is most definitely the alien invasion of Romani Ranch. For those not familiar with Majora's Mask, this event happens on the night of the first day, and their invasion lasts until the dawn of the second day. If the player is unsuccessful in defending the ranch, Romani is abducted and implied to be taken through the normal alien abduction procedure. Now, the Zelda Wiki officially lists these enemies' names as ghosts, which would work thematically for the context of the story, but it's also important to realize the context that these are depicted as aliens in almost every other way, especially as they bear a striking resemblance to the Flatwoods monsters of West Virginia folklore. A week later, we got a new premiere in the video titled The Prisoner.wmv. The tags on this video are as follows: Juducible, Ben Drowned, Ben, Matt, Moon Children, Haunted Majora's Mask, The Last Hero, The Prisoner, Sarah, Abel, Methods of Revolution, Haunted Zelda. Huh. Abel's here in the tags. Why is that? Are we going to see hotel footage? Certainly not. We've chosen to stay inside the game, and the title of the video here doesn't have the Methods of Revolution moniker on it. Very odd. And the description: Sarah makes her way to the second location chosen by the players, the Romani Ranch, where a startling revelation is made. The first thumbnail here is revealing enough. We have a standoff between Sarah and Gomess, who last appeared in the Father.wmv, technically Deducible.wmv. They were the entity that was freed from the Elegy statue after Deducible learned the Elegy of Emptiness. We also see particle effect that showers out whenever a light arrow is used, meaning that Sarah's going to be getting that item here. The second thumbnail is a close-up of the Goht Moon Child. And finally we get the third thumbnail of the 4 Moon Children surrounding Romani in the White Void from Children.wmv, implying that she's the prisoner the title is speaking of. Just before launch, the thumbnail reverted back to the first. Now, as we begin the video, we get the usual recap of the previous entry with the Rose dialogue, and the spectrogram is the same as always. Sarah enters the Romani Ranch, and we get an interlude of the Moon Children in the Void World. The he that they're referring to here is the Odolwa child, who is no longer present. And the she here is most definitely Sarah, referring to her status as the main character of being an anomalous nature. Infecting here is a very, very interesting word. We're going to be running back to this, but for now we can take this to mean that the Moon Children's hearts is equivalent to infecting their data. The Moon Children are obviously not happy with our actions in the game. This is very reminiscent of the guide cipher that was present on the Methods of Revolution that questioned if gathering them, most certainly the Moon Children at this point, was truly the right thing to do. Now, here they also make reference to that wretched man, who at this point we could only assume is Matt, unless we look back at the tags and see that alongside Matt's name was Abel's. We have a possibility here, but like the other things so far, we'll be rounding back to this a little bit later. And the he and his being mentioned here is almost certainly the father. But this point here is interesting. It seems like the Moon Children are disconnecting themselves from the network to accomplish the father's goals separately from his direct will. And here, the Majora child speaks solely in spectrogram, which is actually different than the ones we've been seeing from the previous. And once again, thanks to Shylance in the Awakening Discord for her unending help with decoding these things. You are not as clever as you think. Leave our home. Now, we return to Sarah as she encounters the Goht Moon Child at the entrance of the ranch. These flying objects are the bats that usually accompany Gomess, hinting at his impending arrival. Inside the void, Sarah meets up with Romani, who at long last reveals that her true identity is that of Rosa, and that in every cycle she would have her memory wiped clean. She would forget what she said. Judicible's mistake is that he never went to the ranch to save Rosa. Maybe not his only one, but it was an important one nonetheless. Rosa laments on the fact that she's been stuck in the cycle for almost a decade. She reveals that Romani wasn't exactly her choice of avatar in this world, but then says that she doesn't have much time to talk. Gomess is still out there and chasing Sarah down. I used to have much more control over this world, and many others. This seems to line up with what Abel said about having multiple game experiences for Sarah to try out. It seems Rosa had some level of input over these worlds. Next, Sarah receives the light arrows and the pendant of truth from Romani. Sacred arrows that allow her to power up her bow, and an item to restore certain characters to their original selves respectively. With this newfound strength, Sarah returns to the barn well equipped and leaves to rematch Gomess. And with that, we are now in the second day. After this video, there were some page updates on methods of revolution. A page for Goht was found by yours truly, which contained this image here of something that looks similar to the ML creature from the previous website hostings. Next up came Georg, according to Jad. This typo here, plus the goofiness of this image, led to the memes being created over all future typos of the series would bring out. And yes, there would be more. Gomess's page shows an image of the creature itself with the text, "Who am I?" repeated 3 times alongside, "You can't get rid of me that easily." Now, this text is highly reminiscent of Ben's form from ICU. It's interesting because we almost have certain confirmation that the entity that was speaking to Judicible during Arc 1 as Ben is the Moon Children here, as their manner of speech is almost identical to the speech we see in the Real Truth at RTF. But the more erratic and corrupt outbreaks we saw during Phase 1 of the current arc are very similar to what we see from Gomess here. Almost like Gomess is a sub-program of the Moon Children acting in their will, which in turn acts in the will of the Father. Moving on over to the page for Rosa, we see this image of her with Saved accompanying. Kelbris' page was finally given something. It was the distorted Ben face we saw last episode during the reset, as well as during Phase 1, alongside text added being "almost there," which is basically more confirmation that Kelbris and the Father are one and the same. Next up, Judicible's page changed and removed the ciphers that were previously on it. Now we got a paragraph that says, "Explore while you can. He's still here. Do you think we just got rid of him? You'll be seeing him soon." This phrasing here seems to imply Judicible has been taken over and made into a vessel just like we thought. If we encounter him, he'll be our enemy. Ben's page changed as well. removing most of the text aside from the line about hide and seek, implying his more prankster nature had reverted back. Drown's page changed and now read,
"Do you really think I can't follow you? This is my world."
This connection between Drowned and Kelbris has continued. Something about these two just comes so close, almost in the way that it does with Juducible and a lot of people. They have similar speech patterns, similar places of appearance, and yet both have different pages on the website. Interesting. That's about it for the site for now, but not at all for the day's updates. After this, the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines video on the Juducible channel received new tags. You saved her. About an hour later, the thumbnails for Ben.wmv and Drowned.wmv reverted back to their original Arc 1 forms. But Juducible.wmv changed to a completely new image here. Now, moving over to the Patreon, we get a synopsis for the video. In it, we learn a little bit more detail of the use of the Pendant of Memories. When used on a certain NPC, it allows the character's original memories and autonomy to return. What uses they may have may remain to be seen, as this item could be a great asset to the right character, or an extremely deadly one to the wrong one. And after that, we got word on the next consensus poll. There will be a poll at 6 p.m. EST tomorrow to determine the next course of action. Even though the Moon Child wearing the Goht mask has seemingly disappeared/vanished, does not rule out that there still could very well be important information in Snowhead. Remember, Sarah only has 48 hours in-game left until a decision must be made about doing the 4th day glitch. This part of the game, it is pertinent to gather as much information as possible about the world before making a decision that will irrevocably change it. It's important to think about the potential locations to visit and to take some time to debate the merits of them, of who or what you might encounter to shed light on this world. Clearly, the visit to Romani has added some more context into what this virtual world is and what its inhabitants are, even rewarding players with the special items. Perhaps other locations will as well? The options are Great Bay Coast, Ikana Graveyard, Stone Tower Temple, Snowhead Mountain, Astral Observatory, Revisit Clocktown. The objective for letting the players know the options the day beforehand is to ensure that there's plenty of time to debate the merits of each, and to ensure that people don't feel rushed into making hasty decisions. As a general rule, which will be enforced by the moderation staff going forward, impassioned debating is allowed, but resorting to name-calling or insulting that you disagree with is not. Please keep that in mind. Discussion opens in the Discord tonight. A day later, King Kong's thumbnail also reverted to its original image, although new text was inserted in the corner, 4/1/21, implying something King Kong related was going to be taking place next April Fool's. 2 days after this, The Last Hero also received a thumbnail update, a different shot of the battle between the two as Sarah is surrounded by a ring of fire. And 3 days after this, on July 26th, we got a new premiere for a video titled The Happy Mask Salesman.wmv. Starting with the video's description, it reads, Sarah and Rosa formulate a plan to try and gather more information on the state of the rapidly deteriorating world. Making her way to Snowhead, Sarah encounters a disturbing visage in Clocktown that shatters everything. The tags on this video are a little interesting, because we have a tweet from Jad on this day that says, in 2020, always take the video tags with a grain of salt. Sometimes they can be Easter eggs, sometimes they can be little hints, and sometimes Daddy just has to simp for the algorithm. What does this mean? Well, let's take a look at those tags. Juducible, Ben Drowned, Ben, Matt, Moon Children, Haunted Majora's Mask, Sarah, Abel, Methods of Revolution, Haunted Zelda, Rosa, Saving Rosa, Creepypasta, Vampire, Gomess, Ben Drowned Creepypasta, Alex Hall, Modded Zelda, Modded Creepypasta, Custom Majora's Mask, Hacked Majora's Mask, Modded Majora's Mask, Majora's Mask Mods, Custom Story, Zelda, Custom Story Zelda, Scary, Haunted, Creepy, Modded Zelda Creepy, Happy Mask Salesman, Neko, Kevin, Alex, Rem, Ben Drowned 2. A lot of algorithm-like tags here with the modded Majora's Mask bit. We can safely assume that these are not hints toward the story at large, whereas we do have some interesting story-related ones in Neko, Kevin, Alex, and Rem. Neko, Kevin, and Alex are the names of Moon Children that we haven't seen since Arc 2. Neko and Kevin being the names of two of the mods, the latter being the real name of Insidii. Alex was our main character after his channel, The Link Missing, was discovered and helping us learn how to play songs in that arc, and has since vanished after the Sonata of Awakening was played. And finally, we have the name Rem. This name only cropped up once in the entirety of Arc 2. Here from Duskworld, and the original you should have done that forum page. Subject, Rebirth. DW here. You may notice the slight name change. Figured it was symbolic. We're back for what looks like for a being for good. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations, Chris. He has sure taken a huge interest in you lately. Lucky. I'm not surprised it finally gave you an ascension date. I'm happy for you, man. Can you tell I sound jealous? Anyway, about the move. I know it's been a hectic past couple of days with the domain change and all, but I think that we finally found our home. Fingers crossed. This will no doubt attract more potential children. All the more merrier, I say. The site's going to be under construction for a while due to me and Rem having to transfer all the data over here. Unfortunately, not everything ended up saved and we lost stuff, so we're going to have to try and rebuild. We've done it before, we can do it again. If you guys know any of our guys, feel free to link them to the site. But try and keep it somewhat exclusive. Some of our old siblings, and you know who, were not meant to be part of our group. And please, don't make Mr. D upset. DW. Many folks likened Rem to Merrily in the Phase 1 chat logs that appeared on the Method's website, as she's referred to as Mare by short, which is Rem backwards. But nothing definitive has come forth on that notion, so maybe we'll get some conclusive answers inside. Now, the thing I've been wanting to talk about for a very, very, very long time appears in one of these videos. And it all starts with the thumbnails. Oh boy, this thumbnail here got me so excited when it came out. So, the four thumbnails that this video has are practically frame advances from the same scene. So I'm going to be talking about them as if they're one, since the differences between them are minimal. The only exception is the very last, which includes seemingly a fight with the mini-boss of the Great Bay Temple, Wart, in Clocktown, spelling out uncertain tidings for Sarah. We see Sarah in the void with an imprint of the Majora child in the background with two twin flames surrounding her, with a third just off camera. This thumbnail has been the lock-in key for one of my theories I've had for a few weeks now, but unfortunately we don't get to quite go deep into it yet, as we don't have all the information I need to conclusively prove it yet. So I'm going to hold off on just a little bit longer until we do. But do know we will be returning to this thumbnail, and it will be so worth it. You better buckle up for the video itself, as it's the longest video in the series at this point, and that's going to be a trend that only continues for the next one as well. The video begins with the spectrogram audio that is noticeably missing Rose's cries throughout, further solidifying we did in fact save her. The spectrograms themselves, thanks again Shylance for decoding these, are four separate messages. You cannot wake. Third Puppet Master, found your hubris, Jaducible is alive. Now, these are all very interesting, but we'll talk more about them as we move forward, but keep them in mind. Now, here's something interesting. For the first time, we have something that we haven't seen before in these little recap sections, at least for this phase. This scene of Skull Kid running. Right here, we can see that the Skull Kid is wearing the Majora's mask. Is he an embodiment of Majora Kid? Or is there a second mask here now? And who is Skull Kid supposed to be? He's been here since the very beginning, antagonizing Jaducible from Arc 1 to appearing in Termina Field in both Arc 1 and in the Phase 1 videos of Arc 3. He's such a mysterious figure. Another note of interest is that the Skull Kid here is actually from Ocarina of Time, and he's seemingly walking around the Ocarina of Time woods. This can be seen in the face texture used for Skull Kid, which is black in Ocarina of Time, versus the more woody look he has in Majora's Mask. Our brief preview of our little duck boy ends as we begin on the dawn of the second day. Sarah opens to a world silent to all but Epona's sounds. She slowly finds her way back to Rosa, and I mean slowly.
Did I get it? I mean, come inside. Make yourself at home.
And the two deliberate on their next actions. She informs Sarah that she's unsure if she should have chosen this path. But if she is sure about it, riding it till the end, then she should head for Snowhead and then Great Bay. Rosa then says that she's too big as she is now with the adult's mask on to enter Great Bay as she cannot ride Epona. She tries to take off the mask, but we get an interesting scene. Sarah is denied the chance to return to her previous state. Our choice to stay in the game has prevented her from having the option to return to young Link and re-enter the hotel. She's in it for the long haul. However, this would mean that she's now forbidden from entering the Great Bay. I guess we'll have to figure out another way inside down the road. Rosa seems to understand the fate Sarah's placed herself in. She now shares the same status as the rest of them, digitized inside the cartridge. Rain begins to fall to highlight the somber moment. Rosa apologizes for her being involved, saying that she'll try her best to guide Sarah through this world, but she's only just coming to her senses now. Then we get some interesting name drops, confirming that the 4 Moon Children that were in the tags are in fact ascended, and are here in this game. Rosa likens the world they're in to a paradise, in theory where they'd get to live out their fantasies as the heroes, villains, and all in between. This echoes the sentiments made by the Moon Children from the original Majora's Mask, just as kids who wanted to play games and switch off from being the good guys versus the bad guys. In Majora's Mask, Link took the role of the bad guy by accepting the fierce deity's mask, remember? The Moon Children were made up of youths that were despondents and otherwise castaways from society, often having horrible home lives and found meaning in one another in the cult they joined. So Rosa's plea to not think of them all as bad people is a heartfelt one. They just wanted to find somewhere to belong. And as we saw last video with the Goat Child, that's all they want. They just want a home where pain no longer exists, and Sarah's hunting them down like this. You can understand why they view her as a threat. Here we have another confirmation that Majora's Mask was not the only game that digitized souls inhabited, but it looks like the paradise was not meant to last, as things have taken turns for the absolute worst. At the end of this, Epona of her own volition runs off out of the ranch. This is almost certainly confirmation that someone is playing the role of Epona, just like how Rosa is Romani. Who that is, I have some ideas, but we need future evidence to make any heads or tails of it. Rosa and Sarah vow to solve the mystery by restoring the memories of as many digitized people as they can. And then she warns Sarah that the Moon Children will be looking for her wherever she goes. She ends with an interesting quote. "But I pity them. You are a remarkable foe." This line is a direct quote from Rosa from Vampire the Masquerade's Bloodlines. Rosa. In fact, it's an answer to the question, who are my enemies?
Men, everywhere. Some with swords, some with smiles. But I pity them. You are a remarkable foe.
Sarah regains control and heads out of the ranch towards Epona. Out on Milk Road, she's ambushed by some more Lizalfos, who she quickly takes care of with a few well-timed sword slashes. She continues out and determine a field until we get a sudden outburst from Tattle.
From other random character, will they still have the gamer skills though?
Hey, that pendant is having a residual effect on me. Ooh,
I'm kind of happy.
Circle!
People even knew about. We should.
What the fuck? More information.
What the fuck? But okay.
About this use kind, but it's circle home.
Tattle reveals that the Pendant of Memories is already starting to have a residual effect. They don't fully know who Sarah is, but they start to remember that their name is Circle, meaning Circle Hunter, the name I've been singing high praises of since the very beginning of this project. This here is the first member of the community to be mentioned by name as Moonchild who has ascended into the role of Tattle, the fairy. Now, I know I normally wait until the end of the video to tackle the Patreon posts, but I feel this is a special occasion to explain Jadusible's reasoning for including Circle like this. In the Patreon, Jadusible writes on the topic, Circle Hunter has, over the years, consistently gone above and beyond to help preserve information about this ARG, and has shown an incredible passion for the source material, and I thought it'd only be fitting for him to be canonized as a forest fairy. For those unfamiliar with Zelda lore, a fairy is basically a walking encyclopedia of knowledge, the world meant to guide the player character. And I cannot think of a more fitting person than Circle Hunter to represent this in the world of Bend Around. In the interest of full disclosure, this was an exceptionally special role that took into account the amount of time and investment Circle Hunter has made in helping the community over the years and his Patreon tier. So I would not expect every high tier of patronage to receive the same level of character tier, so to speak. We can't have 50 Navis flying around after all. But this hopefully will start to give you guys some ideas of what to expect for patron rewards being implemented in the following month. They will be in a manner that's befitting to the lore, but not so much that it takes you out of the story and just becomes full-on pandering. I have stated numerous times in the past, I am very conscientious of the finances of my patrons here, especially given current world events, so I want to make sure that is clear. The game has plenty of souls still trapped within it, and utilizing the pendant of memories we can begin to wake up those who were digitized into the game and had their memories wiped. Also, as an important note, Circle or anyone else included in the game do not have any insider info of the story or has any special knowledge or hints of what to do or where to go. Now, what Jad means about his patron tier is that, like myself, Circle is one of the few people that donated to the meme tier, meaning he secured himself the Bend Distinction, Method Revolt, Final Roll, and gone above and beyond to show his support for the series because it's that special to him. So it was a combination of his dedication and work toward the community as a whole that led to this. And honestly, he deserves it. It's awesome seeing his work rewarded after all he's done for the community. Now, back into the video proper, Circle advises Sarah to check out Snowhead to gather more information. The pair decide this is a good idea, and since they're coming from the southern swamp area of Termina Field, Sarah decides she'll cut through Clocktown to save some time. She enters the mysterious theme that has been present ever since the file restarted and Clocktown's inhabitants returned to Redeads. But now they're completely gone, and if we pause right when Sarah enters, we see something disappear right here as the location banner fades out. This is a texture that is used for when the moon's tear falls to the ground and makes an impact in the vanilla game, and it's right where the central tower is supposed to be, and right where the man that was wondering about the sun is. Here we can see two impact sites right next to one another, taking the place of more NPCs. And the tree that is normally here houses a heart piece is gone. Even when entering the clock tower, Matt is gone, and impact site and dribbling puddles where they lie, and the central column of the clock tower is removed as well. Found your hubris. It seems possible that the father, or one of those under his will, managed to get to him first. They found Matt Hubris. Whether he's dead, well, really dead is unlikely according to a speech in the Moon Children, but it's possible he's being taken into a state that's similar to Rosa was. As Sarah leaves, she catches sight of Andrew, who she immediately attempts to restore to her true self by using the pendant of memories. However, it seems that not every NPC contains a living soul inside. Sarah enters the laundry pool and moves quietly as she fears something is coming. Something terrible. She investigates the pool's surrounding areas before crossing the bridge and attempting to enter the backside of the curiosity shop. Finding it locked, the Song of Healing begins to play as the body of the happy masked salesman can be found drowned in the laundry pool, echoing Jadusible's own drowning of his character here from Arc 1. With the masked salesman dead, this almost certainly means that he's ascended to the state that we saw him in Bend.wmv. He's most likely going to be increasing in power much, much faster. As Sarah leaves the laundry pool, she hears the haunting tones of the father, freer than before. She enters West Clocktown where Circle interrupts and mentions that the state of decay is rapidly accelerating because of her presence in the game. The father is adapting to the anomaly's presence and corrupting the world at a much faster rate than it ever did for Traducible. She looks up at the sky to see Wart, and a flash of Kelbris shoots in her mind violently. She's lifted up similar to how Skull Kid did to Jad during Arc 1, but Rosa cuts in and restores Sarah's hearts, showing the benefits of saving her immediately. It's likely if we visited Clocktown without her protection, Sarah could have died. Sarah begins fighting Wart, but it's clear this enemy is stronger than anything she's faced before. She's quickly overwhelmed, but her skills with the shield protects her from the onslaught she's faced by Wart's bubbles. Circle then asks if this enemy is a specific message from someone. Perhaps that it's being sent by the Georg Moonchild, as it's a mini-boss that hails from the Great Bay, similar to how the Odolwa Moonchild summoned twin Odolwas. Sarah manages to come out of the fight successful, and leaves Clocktown through the west gate, heading towards Snowhead, the sound of the rain only thing accompanying her journey. She crosses the north section of the field and then looks back to the town before pressing on toward the mountain. I already talked about the Patreon post a little bit before with Circle's introduction into canon, but it doesn't reveal anything I didn't already theorize about here, except for the confirmation on why the game is so tame compared to the original Arc 1 videos. Traducible has confirmed that the Song of Time has brought this game state back to a time before Traducible had performed the 4th day glitch on it. That doesn't mean that the events of the past 10 years are reversed, but it's more like activating a system restore on a computer. The people inside the game are still present. Traducible is still present in here as a digitized entity after all. Ben, Matt, Rosa, they're all still here. The game is just no longer on the edge of destruction. Although the events of this video do seem to imply that we're going to be heading there much, much faster than the original story. Our next upload comes the week after on August 2nd as the Dying World.wmv. The thumbnail shows a rather chaotic scene on the way to the Goron village, as there are giant snowballs every which way, trees floating in the air, and a giant icicle that which may contain the Goron Elder inside. The world is definitely running to ruin sooner than we think. Now, the thumbnail didn't change for this video, but there were some changes to the tags as the premiere went along. At first, the tags were as follows. Traducible, Ben, Drowned, Ben, Moon Children, Haunted Majora's Mask, Sarah, Haunted Zelda, Rosa, Creepypasta, Ben Drowned, Creepypasta, Modded Zelda, Modded Creepypasta, Custom Majora's Mask, Hacked Majora's Mask, Modded Majora's Mask Mods, Custom Story, Zelda, Custom Story Zelda, Haunted, Creepy, Modded Zelda Creepy, Happy Mask Salesman, Alex, Ben Drowned 2, every copy of Zelda is personalized, Goht, Goht Boss Battle, Dusk, Awakening, Dusk World. Which includes thematically similar tags as to previously with the algorithm tags, but we also get some interesting ones here at the end. Goht, Goht Boss Battle, Dusk, and Dusk World, implying that we may be seeing Dusk World in this video or at some point. Now, about an hour before the premiere went live, some tags were removed and others added. I'll put up a list of those tags. So removed, we got Hacked Majora's Mask Mods, Happy Mask Salesman, Alex, every copy of Zelda's personalized. And added, we got the Dying World, Dying, Death, Scary, ROM Hack, Majora's Mask ROM Hack, every copy of Zelda is personalized, Majora's Mask. And finally, before the video itself, we got the description. Sarah pursues a second lead into Snowhead to find the frozen tundra rapidly deteriorating. As she explores the bizarre landscape, she finds that its inhabitants have all disappeared, save for one mysterious ally. Her investigation ultimately puts her on a crash course to a fated showdown with the second Moonchild. As the video begins, we get our usual spectrogram recap section. The spectrograms in this video translate to the following 4 messages. Who can you trust? He is in there with you. You'll be seeing him soon. A consensus has been reached. Now, people took these messages to mean that we shouldn't trust Matt. But honestly, it's pretty clear that this is following up from the previous message of Traducible is alive. We resume with Sarah climbing the path to Snowhead. Interesting enough, she doesn't need to use her bow to break the ice. Immediately we see the world in sorts of disarray, and it's only going to get worse. Circle interrupts, mentioning that the entire world feels like it's destabilizing, and cautions Sarah to take care moving forward. She pushes forward, and then again Circle speaks up to say that they feel like they're being followed. Sarah continues until they reach a sign with an ominous message. She zones into the mountain village where the ominous track of Snowhead starts up, ending the silence from before. Up here in the sky are strange rotating platforms that are not in the base game. Sarah attempts to investigate further, but without the lens of truth, she'll be unable to climb the mountain up to the spring. So instead, she tries to enter the blacksmith's, but the door is gone, preventing all entry. Sarah moves on and finds the tundra from the thumbnail and confirms that the world seems emptier than normal. It isn't until she enters Goron village that the emptiness is confirmed. The music cuts out again and Sarah makes her way towards the northmost point in town where she sees Kipper Gibbor. The owl introduces himself and curiously wonders if it's truly their first meeting or not, as in the game's logic this would be the second meeting with Kipper. He explains that there are things beyond even their power to change, as this world is falling to decay, and that the most important fight Sarah has to face will be without a sword. He also says that if the courage burns bright within her, she can proceed and try to protect the world from devastation.
To unite all peoples within our nation.
To denounce the evils of truth and love.
To extend our reach to the stars above.
Jesse!
You can call me Abel.
He then says to follow him toward the shrine, and interestingly enough, to not be daunted by appearances, with Y-R-E-N highlighted in red. It's a complete mystery as to why these specific letters are highlighted. Nope, not a single person. It's unsolvable. Yes, so it didn't take long for people to make the connection between the highlighted letters spelling out R-Y-A-N. Orion. So I'm going to pull the curtain back a little bit on this, as a few days before the launch of the video, Jed DM'd me asking my thoughts on my in-game character being someone who digitized into Kipper Gibbor, giving the thematic significance between it, explaining everything. So I'd known about the fact that Kipper was going to be appearing in the video, but I didn't know what he'd do, say, or even how he revealed himself, which honestly is really freaking cool. I love having a little puzzle to solve. It makes me think that it's in reference to the fact that I'm currently running my own ARG full of puzzles and the like. I won't talk long on this topic because this video is about Ben Drowned, but I will say it's really surreal to be a part of the fiction that had consumed my childhood for so long. And I'm forever grateful to Jad and all of you who watch these videos and who've enjoyed my content. Moving over to the Patreon real quick, just like with Circle, we do have a passage about this. This week, a certain owl that is synonymous with explaining things has revealed himself to be Ryan, who has been responsible for these magnificent catch-up videos that have been incredibly useful to new and returning players to the ARG. Keep your eyes open for more appearances in the future videos. In the interest of full disclosure, this is an exceptionally special role that took into account the amount of time investment Circle Hunter and Ryan have been made in helping the community over the years and their Patreon tiers. So, I would not expect every high tier of patrons to receive the same level of character tier, so to speak, but this hopefully will start to give you guys some ideas of what to end. We're going to continue on, because this is the same as before, just kind of edited around. And as an important note, Circle, Ryan, or anyone else included in the game do not have any insider info of the story, or have any special insider knowledge, or what to do, where to go. So, yes, the only thing that I knew was that Kipper was going to be arriving. That's it. I don't know anything else about the story. I don't know anything else about where we're going, what we're doing. So, don't assume that I do. Moving back to the video, Sarah follows my feather trail to claim the strength she once possessed. A very interesting choice of words here. As she reaches the other side, I return to give some additional insight, revealing that there are those who can walk between worlds. And the first thing that comes to mind with this is the Skull Kid we saw previously in the intro to the Happy Mask Salesman. a character who originated from Ocarina of Time, coming to Majora's Mask, and then returning back to Ocarina of Time. Or, in the context of the ARG, a character that originated in Majora's Mask who has entered Ocarina of Time. Introducible in Arc 1 is one of these characters, as we saw him cross over in Drown.wmv, interestingly enough. I then reveal that Sarah's interacted with a few of them already. Some of them are in hiding, some want to be found, and others can't speak for themselves. This last one is very interesting, as it implies that Epona, a character who could only communicate through her whinnies, is a character just like I previously theorized. Going by our history of characters, it's my belief that the person digitized into Epona is Merrily, as in the last text log we saw with her, she was muted by Insidii. It's also possible that Merrily could be Lulu, as in Majora's Mask she's a character who lost her voice and needs to be given it back through the New Wave Bossa Nova. However, the implication that I'm speaking about characters that Sarah's met already, Sarah hasn't met Lulu yet in gameplay. Only Juducible has, in his last moments. So it'd be very strange if I said that she was meeting Lulu. Now, we continue into the shrine and Sarah manages to find the Link of Truth, as well as the piece of heart from the Goht Moon Child. It's very strange that it's just out here in the open, but regardless, we take both and head out of the shrine. Now, an interesting observation. When the Lens of Truth is equipped, we see the world turn to darkness, and Link's visage darkens, almost looking like Dark Link. Whether it's thematic or a side effect of the lens is unknown. Sarah meets up with Darmani's ghost, and the chase begins like normal. Interesting that once we exit Goron Village, the Lens of Truth acts like normal, whereas when we return to the Mountain Village, we see the Void once more. Here we have unique gravestones that aren't here in the base game. A dream never realized lies here. And then, an unrequited love lies forgotten here. Sarah enters the shrine. We meet up with Darmani, who is not Sarah's biggest fan. He blames the destruction on the world on Sarah, not realizing that the Father is the true source of the corruption. He says that Sarah's presence in the game is what is continuously destabilizing their world, and that not even running to the mirror world is safe now. It's infected too. He calls her a duplicate of those that already live here, referring to the memories that are still housed within the adult's mask. As it is true that we currently hold data from a future iteration of this world in the current iteration, which would theoretically cause issues with the duplicate data. Darmani asks if Sarah is some kind of demon or virus. Both of these harken back to Baker.txt, if anything. If you recall that video, we got further clarification on the hero's virus, and the work from the boys in white is some Mark of the Beast type shit. So it's very interesting that Sarah here has been compared to these things. In a sense, she almost is like a computer virus, if we're considering the Father to be a virus as well. This almost seems to imply Darmani believes Sarah is in league with Abel. Sarah attempts the Pendant of Memories, but it seems to have little effect on Darmani, who reveals he needs little help remembering his past. All of what's being said here, plus the tags, seem to imply that this is Duskworld 23 here. And here he mentions that someone else arrived before Sarah did, and he's not lifting a finger to help her. The conversation ends, and Sarah investigates the room for a chest containing the hookshot. After this, she exits the shrine, and we get some strange interference that's similar to the Methods interruptions. Sarah hookshots out onto the floating platform she could see from below, and the new song from before begins to play quietly in the background. As she nears the end, she can see the Goht Child on the final platform. He's quick and to the point, instantly warping Sarah to the Snowhead boss room, and frees Goht from its icicle prison. We get a flash from Rosa, and Sarah is fully restored. We see this fight, like the Odolwa fight, has been made more difficult with some Dinolfos added to the mix. Sarah runs around the Coliseum to try and catch up, but Goht's speed is too much for her without the Goron mask. Sarah dodges some expertly timed lightning blasts, and Circle has her stay wary from the Dinolfos. I'll figure something out. You're a smart man. except when it comes to Nintendo and their nonsensical spelling of enemies. Dynaphos, reorg. Dinosaur, foe. So why is it Dynalphos? It's Dynalphos. We cut to Rosa and me in the White Void, and return to the action immediately after. Sarah faces off against the Dynalphos, and she dodges Goht's electrical attacks. Rosa cuts in again and offers to give Sarah one final health restoration, but it only manages to just barely pull her from the brink. Sarah manages to knock Goht down with a bomb and get some hits in. She refills some arrows from the pots and decides to go on the offensive. She manages to get the finishing blow on Goht, and finally the beast takes its final breaths. The world fades and we're brought back to the void with the Goht Moon Child, who is in utter disbelief over his loss. He questions Sarah if all she cares about is solving some little mystery, then refuses to help her learn more, saying to consume him if she's so inclined. Sarah is then brought back to the floating platforms on the night of the second day, and the video ends. After this video, we got some changes on the Method's website. Goht's and Drown's pages both changed to ellipses in the text, seemingly confirming the two entities are one and the same. Judicible's page changed to re-union, which is the final piece that I needed for my master theory that I hinted at back then. But we'll cover the rest of the Method's changes before I tackle that topic. Duskworld 23 changed to leave our home, further cementing his identity as Darmani. Drown changed once more, this time becoming 2 left, implying the number of Moon Children remaining, Georg and Twinmold. But what about the Majora child? It's possible that Drowned is actually the Majora child, and he was only interfacing with the Goht Moon child, knowing how he got consumed. This would make sense then for why I would say 2 left, and that was the final change for tonight. Now, back to what I promised. It was around this time when I came up with a theory that had me in shambles because the pieces kept fitting together. This is my master theory on all things Judicible, Twin Flames, and the identity of Guide. There is a lot of content that is going to be covered here, and honestly there's no shortcutting around this. This tackles a lot of different points in the canon, so I'll try my best to have evidence visible when I can and organize it to the best of my ability. Things will make sense as more connections are made. Number 1. The Majora's Mask footage in Hubris.wmv and End.wmv. So, these two videos are the black sheeps of Phase 1. They're not .text videos, but contain elements of the .text uploads. Side by side, they're like a sort of mishmash between .wmv and .text. Even the video that was literally a .wmv turned into a .text doesn't do this. Transmission. What's up? Well, multiple times now we've had the concept of bridging together multiple realities. From Hubris.wmv's description, Attempt 15. Trying again. I doubt I can reach these two at the same time. He moves. Specifically the I doubt I can reach these two at the same time. It seems the uploader is trying to reach 2 specific people at once. But who? Well, we have 2 different events happening at the exact same time in these 2 videos. The Jadis text documents and the Majora's Mask footage. Now, Clock JPEG from the Awakening Discord previously theorized tonight if these 2 sets of videos were part of Matt.wmv that we never saw. It's possible, and the network censoring the identifying details in the Truth.wmv is also a possibility we may have to consider. If that's the case, then it seems like the uploader is trying to reach Judicible and Jadis at the same time. Interesting. This would then mean that Jadis isn't our uploader, even though they are the one typing the document. I don't see who the 2 would be in any other context. Next, from the guide cipher on Methods of Revolution. Is it possible to see multiple realities at once? Yeah, I think this is hinting at the lens of truth, but we're literally seeing this happen in these 2 videos. This is also something that seems to crop back up in Gateway.wmv's description, where the binary is translated to the gateway blocks to building ephemeral life. Crash together. This will help link them together. Which, this video is another example of multiple realities being linked together, as this video is almost identical to Ben.wmv, almost like it were an alternate playthrough. Remember my theories on alternate timelines from Awakening Part 1. Part 2. The significance of ICU that we missed. ICU is a weird one. It was initially uploaded as / in place of transmission.txt, and then removed, and then re-uploaded after. Then a little over a week later was renamed to ICU. Why the name change, and what's the significance of the /? What does this mean? I think the fact that Juducible is alive and we'll see him soon isn't a positive thing, especially considering who is telling us this. The Majora kid seems to be responsible for our spectrograms seen in Prisoner.wmv, so I think Juducible is still part of the network. Even though that game state has been reversed to pre-Arc 1 days, the people inside still remain, including Juducible. Now that we have those facts laid out on the metaphorical table, it's time I bring in the big guns, the twin flames, and the importance of numerology. Part 3. The fate of the twin flames. There goes my favorite concept from this arc. This concept also needs a little bit of an introduction, as I've talked about this a lot in the Discord and on the subreddit, but I actually haven't spoken about it in the videos yet, as I didn't have an actual theory to bind it to, but now I do. So, while I was digging around looking for clues in the documents we had back during Phase 1 of Awakening, I stumbled across a weird entry from the Real Truth.rtf, the section that has the network / Moon Children conversing amongst one another. This section is the only part of this document that differs from the Truth.rtf. This much I've made reference to previously. The interesting thing is that this entry was listed as taking place at 9:09, a very weird number to randomly go with here. This strange number led me to Googling any significance with the number 909. Turns out, it was pretty significant. I got a lot of results referring to Angel 909 and Twin Flame. A twin flame is another name for a soulmate, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship, just any kind of significant relationship between two people that changes both lives forever. Another name for this concept is the mirror soul. One could say that Matt and Juducible are twin flames, two people that are so heavily connected that it isn't even funny, but aren't the same person. Or one could say Jadis and Juducible are twin flames, because they are so heavily connected, but not the same person. How connected are they? Oh boy, you don't even know the half of it. So, when Juducible first brings the Majora's Mask cartridge home and boots it up immediately, things are weird. The game is mixing up Link and Ben already. The game is making a Link of its own here. From this point on, the network inside exists, and it's going to demonstrate the events of Ben's death almost like a puppet show. Link here is an active character in this play. Juducible then performs the fourth day glitch and attempts the Song of Soaring, which fails. This directly counteracts with the events that the Matt.wmv we see in the Truth.rtf, but don't see. Where Juducible attempts to perform the fourth day glitch, but is prevented, and then Ben tells him to travel to Iconic Canyon, so he performs the Song of Soaring, which succeeds. We have contrasting elements that align as idiosyncrasies. Oh, you thought I forgot about the concept of synchronicity? Hell nah, bruh. Synchronicities and twin flames are practically twin flames themselves. Anyway, on the next part of Day 4.wmv, we see Juducible transported to the Majora's Mask boss fight. This fight takes place inside an arena of the moon that's now known as alternate dimension created by Majora's power. Suddenly, a text box pops up. You're not sure why, but apparently you had a reservation. A reservation to the Stockpot Inn from within the moon. Now, current players of the game will understand the connection this brings by mentioning the presence of a hotel. Jadis is within a world that is outside of our own, who, as confirmed by his own memories following the events of Baker.txt, seems to have his own reservation at the ethereal hotel. Keep in mind these resonances. Now, take this and apply it to the Moon Children who have ascended and reached this plane of existence. Duskworld, in the moon. Neko, in the moon. How does Link enter the moon in Majora's Mask? He ascends. The same motion we see in Sonata.wmv when Link ascends to another world. You know where Link goes in Day 4 after this? Dawn of a New Day with the subtext of the lines beneath it. In Children.wmv, the synchronicity to Sonata.wmv, Link plays the Sun Song, the synchronicity to Majora's Mask's Song of Double Time, and is brought to the very same subtexted Dawn of a New Day. Not Dawn of the Second Day, the Final Day, or even the First Day. Dawn of a New Day, the Fourth Day. Next up, we're going to establish another synchronicity, this time between Jedusible and Jadis. And further than that, during the Day 4.wmv summary, we get this quote from Jedusible. The only way I can describe the way I felt here is having this feeling of inexplicable depression on a profound scale. I'm not normally a depressed person, but the way I felt here was a feeling that I didn't even know existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that it seemed to wash over me. Take this statement, which happens directly after the previous passage, and compare it to a passage from Jadis, taken from his post on Reddit, talking about his new spiritual experience in the early stages of his awakening. In fact, but the weirdest thing is happening. My life is objectively in more danger and uncertainty than I ever faced before, but I feel better than ever. I used to not be able to look people in the eye for very long. Used to not really speak up at all. I used to sit around and fall in a pit of despair, reflecting on my life and missed opportunities. Now I wake up, more invigorated and level-headed than ever before, even though the world is going to hell around me. Also, I've totally been hearing voices in my head. LOL, just kidding. But seriously, has anyone else felt or beginning to feel like this? Like something spiritual is happening? Take note of the use of the word spiritual here. This is a recurring phrase, and anytime it comes up, I'm suggesting that it's the same influence. Jadis was in a deep depression. Jedusible is falling into a deep depression he didn't even know existed. Take note of these synchronicities. They are deliberate. It's been more than half an hour and the messages have stopped. Ben has stopped. I'm beginning to think that Ben is confined to my computer/cartridge. I'm beginning to feel something. It's hard to explain it. I've never been spiritual, but there's something different about the air in my dorm room now. There is resonance here. It's the same thing. Also, when we hear about the tingling in Jadis' forehead, and the tingling in the forehead being directly associated with awakenings in awakening.txt, we get this from Jedusible. 2:45 p.m. I've been getting random, inexplicable headaches due to the lack of sleep, and I keep hearing that song in my head. Now, Jadis isn't the only person we see sync up with Jedusible like this. There's one other person who I've previously alluded to that has been connected time and time again to Jedusible. Matt. Ifrit, Rodney R., the Moonchild who used an alias to cover his own ass within the Moon Children, and the first character to bear the surname Hubris. Where to even begin with this guy? So, to begin, Matt appears at the tail end of Drowned.wmv in the file list, meaning that Ben, the network, has some form or fashion knows about Matt, and for some reason is conveying this message to Jedusible. Next, the video immediately after this in Jedusible's own words is titled Matt.wmv. However, the video we actually got was called Jedusible.wmv. Matt and Jedusible. Jedusible and Matt. Link and Ben. We're getting parallel upon parallel here. Now, one might think that Ben might have just lied and messed with things. I don't actually think Ben has lied to us at all. Made things difficult to understand? Yes. But lied? I don't really think so. I'm gonna call forward on the last communication we ever got from Matt in Arc 2, mhftt.text. Your first instinct may be to assume this message has been tampered with, but then you may not really understand who it really is. It wants to play. It wants a challenge. And from that letter that was sent out to the top 50 donators alongside the newspaper fragment,
it begins again. But it isn't amusing without a struggle, without a challenge, so I invite you. Come, rally together with the others who are damned. Try to fight for your pathetic existence, just as he did. You will fail, but I want you to try. You remember how to find me, how to find us. You can't fight fate.
This here explains why the network does what it does. It hides information, but not so that we can't ever learn it. It wants us to work for it. It wants a challenge. It believes its goals are inevitable, that it's an agent of fate itself, so that it might as well make it interesting as possible since it's going to win anyway. That's why Ben led us to You Shouldn't Have Done That.net. That's why it led us to Within Hubris. Yeah, that was Ben, remember? Those ciphers posted from the YouTube channel? Why do you think Ben would lead us to those parts of the game? Because it's the embodiment of hubris. The literal definition of hubris is excessive self-pride or confidence. Next, we take a look at the cipher that brings Ryukaki into the game. The message calls out specifically to Cade Hendricks, warning him that Ben is after him next. From Ryukaki himself, we get some very important information that I haven't seen anyone question since it happened. Everyone who's gotten close to has been marked. You were one of them, I suppose, especially getting into contact with Rosa like that. I don't get what's with this marking thing. When people find out important information, they get marked, sucked into the story mentioned by Ben. I am the only person so far outside of Rosa and the others to be mentioned by Jeduceable. Wasn't the Seraphim person also marked? For the reality theory? He was only mentioned, very shortly, in one file that came after the 59, which said it was the last communication we'd get from Jeduceable. Ben plays games. He leads people astray. Jeduceable led you all to me as his last will and testament. There has to be a reason for that. Ben has never seen it. I didn't think about it at the time, but if that was Ben, then I let him write to me. A bit. Why would he lead us to you, though? I know he likes playing games with us and everyone, but you've also left some of it visible. Ben didn't lead anyone to me. Jad did. With his last will and testament, his final word to us before the link was broken, Cade Hendricks, you are in danger. That and a long briefing on how we will all need to work together to beat Ben. That if we remain divided and refuse to work together, he wins. Do you feel the resonance? Ryukaki, no less than 3 times, suddenly confuses Matt for Jeduceable. File 59 is specifically mentioned, and Ryukaki even quotes the direct translation of the cipher. Ryukaki, who we wrote off as not canon because of the dispute after the game ended, is now supporting the very theory that we're seeing here. Something else about Ryukaki we need to talk about, from his torrent of Mediafire files. We get the following. Now that I realize what he kept saying, that it was in front of us the whole time, I'm surprised nobody got it but me. The file that led you to me, it contained a larger secret than you knew. MHFTT. Matt Hubris frees the truth. Matt Hubris 423. All the answers are right there. Think. By now you might have noticed a pattern. I won't tell you if that pattern is useful or not. Just keep watching. Today you will get all the answers I have. We're getting serious significance placed on mhftt.text. So let's return to it and look to see if we can see what Ryukaki saw. I don't know how to tell you this, but there is no more link now. You was the last thing that stood between you and it as some sort of conduit. That conduit is severed now. There is not consider this the real thing that separate you from him. It is always watching, and it will lead you to iTruth.txt into oblivion if you let it. Do not be fooled. If something is too good to be true, be wary. You must use this overconfidence and systematic prediction against it. How? I do not know. That is something I could not figure out before the end. Even now, it's allowing me to reach you through this message. There are messages juxtaposed in the middle of the main message here. Do you know what this sounds like? This is the text version of Hubris.wmv and End.wmv. It's the same thing. Two messages being crashed right into another. Let's separate them into two and take the smaller section. Consider this the real truth.txt. For those that don't know the origin of this quote, let's follow me to the truth section of You Shouldn't Have Done That.net. Hey, Juducible here. Consider this the real truth.txt. This is an out-of-character post. Now, think of this for a second while I bring out my next piece of evidence. Do you remember the word I brought out earlier regarding overconfidence? Hubris? Do we remember Matt's last name according to his email account? Matt Hubris? Now, I'm going to direct your attention to the February 16th, 2011 Resistance Chitango Q&A, where Juducible appears as Juducible H. Take notes for every future Q&A he uses this username, and not Juducible. Hey Jad, can you clear up what exactly MHFTT means? Matt Hubris 423, which also sort of answers a question that was just asked that was deleted, if you look between the lines. Chad, what does the H mean in your name? Already answered that, Spurk. Sort of. It's hidden. But I answered it. Matt Hubris 423. Juducible H. Juducible Hubris. This is supposed to be an out-of-character interview. This was supposed to be an out-of-character announcement. But clearly the revelation from this is that we have to be on our guard from now on considering out-of-character matters. These synchronicities are too loud to ignore now. Now, with that number, 423. We've been hearing whispers of this number from the very start of the game. 423 is a very important number. It repeats again, and again, and again. 423 is the number we hear whispered visually throughout the entirety of this game. There is a page on the freaking wiki that lists all the important instances it recurs. I know you've heard these whispers, that you've seen them, that you've felt them. We see this number crop up again and again, but also to connect Juducible back to Jadis again, just like our wordsmith friend, Juducible has also been hearing whispers from day 4.wmv. Every now and then I would hear the faint laugh of the happy mask salesman in the background, just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I was just hearing things, but just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. From the truth.rtf. I haven't played it at all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I kept hearing the reverse song of healing music in my head, and just kept remembering the sense of dread that I felt. Why would someone send me this message? I don't understand it. I just get too depressed thinking about this. The footage is up here for those who want to see it and try to analyze it. Maybe there's some kind of coded message in the gibberish or something symbolic in what I went through. I'm too emotionally and mentally drained to fuck with it anymore. It's one thing to see this footage and read what I have to say. It's another entirely when you're playing this game by yourself. And it's like the game's actually trying to reach to you personally. It talked to me for the first time, not just using text that's already in the game. It spoke to me. It talked to me. It referenced Ben. It talked to me. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it wants. I never wanted this. I just wanted my old life back. Stuff like this doesn't happen to people like me. I'm just a kid, not even old enough to drink yet. It's not fair. I want to go home. I want to see my parents again. I'm so far away from home here at this school. I just want to hug my mom again. This game is actively draining Juducible's emotions, almost as if it's carving him out from the inside. This is how awakening happens. But there are more connections here as well. The I'm not even old enough to drink mirrors Jadis' turn to the drink, as a response to his depression. And doesn't this last sentence here remind you guys of Neko in Within Hubris? He was asking for his mom almost exactly the same way. So, Juducible is way more important than we could ever really even believe. He connects to so much and has so much resonance with everything we're seeing here. Before I return to more connections with Juducible, we need to go over a little bit more of those whispers we've been hearing, the recurring numbers in this game. Back when I was talking about Twin Flames, I mentioned one of the results I got from Googling was Angel 909. Angel 909 is referring to angel numbers. Spiritualists believe that there are recurring signs in numbers as you see them more frequently. As far as I've been able to research, there is data for seeing these patterns from 1 to 3,333, interestingly enough. Wondering why angels are suddenly being brought into the mix? They're not. They've been here since the start. Remember that odd phrase found way back when on YouShouldn'tHaveDoneThat.net? Men must become angels. Oh yeah, we're bringing that one back into the mix. Angel 909 in relation to the Twin Flame is an odd enough situation. It's telling you that there's an end of a bad relationship which is not your Twin Flame. After the ending, there will be a new start and beginning. Now, do you remember when the Happy Mask Salesman launched, and I said we'd be doubling back to this thumbnail? Oh boy, I absolutely freaked out when I was sent this image on Discord to find that it has Sarah surrounded by identical twin flames. Now, not convinced? How about in the Dying World.wmv, where we get confirmation of a mirror world? Do you remember the other name for twin flames? Mirror souls. Also, fun fact, way back when Sarah plays the Song of Healing to Ben, do you remember anything odd happening to Sarah's equipment? YouTube user RedOdetto brought to my attention that she actually obtains the mirror shield in this segment, and only in this segment, as immediately after she receives the adult's mask, and we've not seen her in her youngling form since. The mirror shield. So, that's a lot of evidence towards the idea of twin flames and the importance of numerology. Another quick one is something I'll have you guys research at home. Try looking up angel number 423 and see if there are any synchronicities you find. Trust me, it's crazy. But wait, there's more? Hell fucking yes. So, the name of this topic was The Fate of the Twin Flames. The journey of a twin flame relationship is scored in 7 unique stages, starting with what's known as the searching stage. This is the part of your life before meeting your twin flame. You are said to be subconsciously preparing for your fated meeting, and one common practice that those who are searching do is writing and chronicling their life in a journal. Juducible did this with the Truth.rtf. Jadis does this with every one of his text videos. Stage 2 is when you make contact with your twin flame. Do you want to know what it's called? Do you? I don't know if you do. Okay. It's called The Awakening. Yep. A direct quote from my research. It's also worth noting that awakening can take place in a dream, meaning that you meet your twin flame in the dreamscape before you ever cross paths in the real life. Regardless of how you meet, you will be shaken by the intensity of the bond you feel. You may feel intoxicated by it, and find that all of your waking moments are occupied by the thoughts of this person. Yep! Stages 3 to 6 are less important as far as I've seen yet, but I'll list them for completion's sake and in the case they come up. Stage 3, the test. Stage 4, the crisis. Stage 5, the running/chasing stage. Big fucking hints maybe for our predecessor who's following us around. Stage 6, the surrender. And finally, Stage 7. Oh boy, you won't believe number 7. The final stage in a twin flame relationship is reunion. exactly what Judusible's page on methods shows. So, what does this mean altogether? We have someone who is transmitting a message, trying to reach what seems to be Judusible and Jadis, trying to reach them both at once. We have the act of communicating through multiple realities. We have connections that can only be really explained thoroughly through twin flames or mirror souls. I'm going to go on a hunch here. I think Abel is our uploader. I think he's a twin flame with both Jadis and Judusible, that he's trying to reunite with them, both, hence his vested interest in the cartridge. One step further, I think he's Guide. Think about it. The Judusible YouTube channel changed to Guide's profile pic during the Methods of Revolution phase. Guide became the author of the Methods of Revolution articles, and Abel has literally been our guide through the Methods phase. We have been taught through Judusible H and the Real Truth.txt that out-of-character Jad is not to be trusted. We've learned that Guide himself is an in-character stand-in for out-of-character Alex Hall. Everything about this points to one conclusion. Abel is Guide. Abel resonates with Jadis. Abel resonates with Judusible. Guide is our current uploader, and I believe he has been since Awakening has started. And that is my theory / theories with the information that we have currently as of the Dying World's release. As we continue forward, we will keep this in mind and look for anything else that will help confirm / deny this. But out of every theory I've ever come up for with this game, there is a lot here that just fits so well. We're going to move on to actual story progress. As of August 9th, the next video was set to premiere, the Predecessor.wmv. I am not shitting you, quite literally. After I come up with this gargantuan mega theory, we are getting Judusible back in the game, and I cannot believe everything is coming together so soon. Actually, it makes sense. August 9th is exactly 4 months and 23 days after the upload of Awakening.txt. So, the tags for this video are as follows. Judusible, Ben Drowned, Ben, Moon Children, Haunted Majora's Mask, Sarah, Haunted Zelda, Rosa, Creepypasta, Ben Drowned Creepypasta, Modded Zelda, Modded Creepypasta, Custom Majora's Mask, Modded Majora's Mask, Custom Story, Zelda, Custom Story Zelda, Haunted, Creepy, Modded Zelda Creepy, Ben Drowned 2, Goht Boss Battle, Dusk, Awakening, Dying, Death, Scary, ROM Hack, Majora's Mask, ROM Hack, every copy of Zelda's personalized, Majora's Mask, Great Bay, Ben Drowned sequel. Don't say I don't ever do things for you guys. So quite literally the only important factors that we haven't seen before is Great Bay. The description is as follows. With 36 hours remaining as the world continues to break down, Sarah heads to Great Bay in search of answers. Her journey leads her to discover a disturbing paradox. Now, for the thumbnails, there were quite a few changes here leading up to the premiere. The very first here is an image that will be familiar to a lot of you. It's a direct reference to the original and current thumbnail for Ben.wmv. As in, it's the same location with Sarah in place of Judusible. It's quite literally mirroring the original timeline. Remember, Ben.wmv is also in 423, first became a significant number in the series. The second thumbnail shows a text box, presumably from the supposed predecessor saying, "Finally, you and I meet." The third thumbnail shows a first-person view underwater in Great Bay, pointed out towards Pinnacle Rock. The fourth thumbnail shows another first-person view looking up from the surface of water. The fifth shows a callback to the Goht Moonchild's final words. The sixth shows a conversation with the Yorick Moonchild. Similar to that of the Odolwa Moonchild, he says, "But oh, what a shame. You're so low on health. This won't be fun at all." And finally we end on the current thumbnail, Sarah facing off against Yorick. This time, it's more like the Odolwa fight, outside of the proper boss arena, and instead in Pinnacle Rock. The video begins with more spectrogram messages, although these ones are different than the recent Phase 3 ones, as they're coded messages, similar to some of the Phase 1 spectrograms. These 4 ciphers are unsolved to this day, and I'll be showing them in case anyone wants to take a crack at them. Oha schnapt freaks al libfeer. Ovdul milnstuf ziak fu mu nub. And Siba zik zin zibik. Perfect. An interesting thing to note here is that as of the night of the second day prompt appears on screen, the ice platforms created by the Goht Moonchild disappear, and Sarah falls to the distance back to the ground, confirming that she takes 0 fall damage. She looks up to confirm that the platforms are indeed gone before heading to leave Snowhead. As she zones out of the mountain, we see that the enemies of the area have returned. The environment is still a bit screwy, and Sarah finds that all is still not well, as the forbidding message is left her on a sign. As she continues, more and more enemies throw themselves at Sarah before she's able to disperse them. She makes it back to Termina Field as the foreboding music from Clocktown now begins to play here. The corruption from the town and mountain are beginning to spread to the field in between. Now here's something interesting. The moon is looking directly at Sarah. This doesn't happen in the base game. It always stares at Clocktown, its inevitable destination. However, here we see that the moon, the father, has direct eye contact on her. As she moves further away from Snowhead, she confirms our fears. The father is actively following her as she walks. She makes her way towards the Great Bay and finds that there's a hookshot pole placed perfectly so she can cross the gate here without the need for a Epona. Sarah confirms once again that the father is still staring at her. She enters the Great Bay and we fade into a scene of the Twinmold child speaking to the Majora child inside the void. The Twinmold child says that he has now been absorbed, certainly meaning the Goht Moon child. This line here implies that if the players chose to visit Ikonim now, instead of after Great Bay, we would have been running right into a trap. Which makes sense. Skipping right to the last dungeon's area because of the overconfidence would be the death knell for Sarah. It would literally be hubris. Important to note here that the Moon Children are aware of the Predecessor's existence inside the cartridge, and are actively keeping tabs on their whereabouts. It also implies that they're not exactly within the same network, although if my theories on Judiceable are true, they're definitely not going to be showering us with friendly advice. And then Twinmold says, "Unleash yourself upon Termina," almost connecting the Majora Moonchild with the father in some way. We return to Sarah and see that the Great Bay is not doing much better than Snowhead. The trees are actively glitching out, and there are strange cyclones of water out in the actual bay. Once again, we see the father is watching Sarah's every move. In front of the bay, we see a sign that says a lot of nonsense, although we can almost make out DRWN as in drown. After this, Sarah walks into the ocean, but finds no resistance with the water. She looks back a moment further before going deeper into the bay, where she discovers that she can walk underwater with no repercussions. She continues forward. The father calls out once more as she continues approximately where Judiceable encountered the Elegy statue in Ben.wmv. And here Sarah finds a Poe, a spirit, at the bottom of a seabed. That is definitely not foreboding or anything like that. Sarah disperses the Poe and eerily watches the spirit fade before setting her sights back on Pinnacle Rock. She makes it to the entrance where she finds the sign with the first unaltered text in a long while. We fade into a scene of the Georg child with a new custom track in the background. We got scenes from the thumbnails play out as Georg says that it wouldn't be fun just killing Sarah when she has so few hearts. Now, here's interesting. Georg almost seems to take the exact opposite approach as the previous Moon Children, not necessarily needing to kill Sarah to stop her. Instead, he's going to trap her into an endless boss battle until the final day passes. Sarah's thrown into the depths of Pinnacle Rock as the Georg boss battle begins. She's then warped outside of her own volition into the Georg attack, where she's then spit back out into one of the hiding holes of the various creatures of Pinnacle Rock. Interesting here is we get more visual interference a la the Methods introductions. Circle reminds Sarah that they can't fight Georg without the Sailor's Mask in here. His outer shell is impervious to her arrows. She tries killing the sea snakes with her bombs, as she's not able to reach them with her sword. She manages to get one, and uses the hole as a vantage point to shoot arrows from, but Georg sees this plane coming, and he ambushes her when she lets her guard down. We fade into Rosa and myself talking in the white void. I ask Rosa if she can pull an item through the ether like she did with the Pendant of Memories, and she says that she's unable to, as it seems someone else is using the Zora's Mask, so she's unable to grab it. We're back in the fight as Sarah tries to continue assaulting Georg with the light arrows, but Circle reminds her that he's made his armor impervious to them. She dodges one of his charges, but on the second bout he lands the hit. When Sarah spit out, she lands on the outer rim of Pinnacle Rock, allowing her to escape back to the Great Bay. I cut in and tell Sarah to run, and she makes well to get out of dodge. She zones out and we fade to black. Rosa asks where Sarah has gone, and I say that the world is becoming more unstable. Even the game's warps are corrupting. Sarah is now in a pure white void. She stands face to face with Zora Link, the one who is using the ether in the game's code. She is facing the Predecessor. The video ends and we've got quite the cliffhanger. The Patreon post doesn't have much to offer that we haven't already gone over, but it does clarify that Jad took the week off for his birthday on August 13th, so there would be a week without an update. Consequently, Methods of Revolution went down for a few days after players discovered the Georg page changed twice, once to ellipses, and the second time to where did she go? On August 12th, the page closed, and on August 13th, Alex's birthday came around. And normally I wouldn't mention this in an explain video, but considering I was part of the production and several users of the Discord, I shall, since I want to take time to give the credit to all the talented people involved in what's essentially a large-scale fan dub of the Ben Drown story thus far. Awakening mod Zed Regas came up with the idea and strung everything together as for the idea of BIRTHDAY.wmv. I'll roll the cast list on screen so you can see the hard work everyone put into this project, and we'll link it in the description.
Understand, man, no, it cannot be stopped. Our influence is dangerous when we're drowned and lost. When you're on the web, remember the cost to download, of browsing and posting a lot.
Go and show Zed some love and subscribe to his channel, and check out the full video for yourself. And now, back to canon events. On August 23rd, we got a new premiere in the form of the Showdown.wmv. The tags are as follows: Jeducible, Ben Drowned, Moon Children, Haunted Majora's Mask, Sarah, Haunted Zelda, Rosa, Creepypasta, Ben Drowned Creepypasta, Modded Zelda, Modded Creepypasta, Custom Majora's Mask, Modded Majora's Mask, Zelda, Custom Story Zelda, Haunted, Creepy, Modded Zelda Creepy, Ben Drowned 2, Awakening, Death, Scary, ROM Hack, Majora's Mask ROM Hack, every copy of Zelda is personalized, Majora's Mask, Great Bay, Ben Drowned Sequel, Ocarina of Time, Fierce Deity vs. Adult Link, Fierce Deity, PvP. So with these, there are some quick notes to make. First, every instance of deity was misspelled as deity here in the text initially, the same typo we saw on Alex's page way back in Arc 2. This was corrected, I assume, when Jed caught wind of them, all the memes before we had another Griorg Dynaphos situation. Another thing is that the Ocarina of Time tag was added shortly after, as that brings us to the thumbnail. Okay, where to begin with this? So this thumbnail was a bombshell. First, we're facing off against the fierce deity, as the text implied. Second, we're in the Chamber of the Sages from Ocarina of Time. This all but confirms that Ocarina of Time is the mirror world hinted at way early on in Phase 1 and mentioned directly in the Dying World. So, what does this mean? Who are we fighting? Is this us fighting? There are so many questions, but there's one final important distinction to make. Players wondered if this was actually Sarah and Link, as this is definitively Ocarina of Time's adult Link model, and not the fan-made one that Sarah uses in Majora's Mask. The first thumbnail change we get is almost negligible. If I flip between the two, you'll notice that in the first image here, there's a small green square here that's from Debug. It's gone in the second thumbnail, and it's unknown if it has any specific importance. But there are some small related things I'll bring up as we go into the video. The video begins with 4 new spectrogram messages. These, as usual, decoded by Shalanced, read as the following. No one came to save me. Look beyond the horizon. Ashes of the Phoenix. Was Berkeley right? So, very interesting ones. The first almost seems to come from Juducible himself, if this is being set up to how I think it is, at least. Then we have a mention of a horizon, which we'll be coming back to real shortly. Ashes of the Phoenix seem to imply that something dead will be reborn. Again, foreshadowing. And then finally, we get a repeat spectrogram, kinda. Way back in Phase 1, we got a spectrogram that was for a cipher in End.wmv that was decoded to mean was Berkeley right, which related to Tyler Lawman, who went under the alias Berkeley in transmission.txt. The question seemed to refer to his solipsism theories and the world answering on his own existence. But here we are again witnessing this question recur. We enter into the same scene where we left off previously, with Sarah facing off against Zora Link. We get the Dawn of the Final Day title card, and Juducible begins the conversation, mentioning that Sarah's been causing a commotion. Circle recognizes the Zora's mask and says that they can use it to defeat Georg. The predecessor then confirms that they've been acting on their own accord, and stealing away all of the masks in the game, so that way Sarah couldn't use them. We can see hints of this in the earlier videos. Actually, in the Moon Children.wmv, when the game is reset, we can see that the 24 masks have been collected by a player character. But we see none in Sarah's inventory in the later videos. It wasn't by Sarah. The predecessors had all of the in-game masks since at least this point, but after she started her file. We can actually see more evidence of the predecessor's involvement in the Happy Mask Salesman.wmv. On the Patreon, Jad made note of a Discord post by user B. Karibo, which calls attention to invisible footsteps we can hear in the Happy Mask Salesman. Here at this point in the video, we can hear the footsteps similar to what Andrew's footsteps sound like, but Andrew's already zoned out of the area by this time in the video, implying that someone else was in Clocktown. Next, there was a tweet posted shortly before the Showdown.wmv's premiere as a tease for the update. It's a short clip that features a conversation between an unknown entity and who we can assume to be Rosa based on the scream at the end. The clip is very interesting, as many thought it was a snippet from the video we'd be seeing, but in fact, this clip doesn't show in the video at all, which is odd. The clip itself shows the entity drawing a sword to take care of Rosa. So there were quite a few theories that popped up at this time that it was actually Dark Link from Ocarina of Time, from HuntYouDown.wmv, becoming relevant once again. However, as we see in the thumbnail, it's most certainly the predecessor, here with the Fierce Deity Link. Anyway, back to the video. The predecessor continues on, and says that while their plan was successful, they didn't plan on Ben assisting Sarah with the adult's mask. Zora Link unmasks to reveal young Link from Majora's Mask, revealing to us that this was the reason why Sarah couldn't take off the adult's mask, because there was no young Link model to substitute in, just as Rosa was not able to pull the Zora's mask as the predecessor was using it when she attempted. Here we get two things: confirmation of the predecessor's allegiance against us, and an interesting visual oddity right here on top of now. Circle tries to play to his good spirits, but the predecessor takes out the fierce deity's mask. And the video ends. Is what I would be saying if that were true. Interestingly enough, the video here that we see is 17 minutes and 30 seconds long, when in this video we're only just reaching the 11-minute mark. This runtime is actually only a second off of the Predecessor.wmv's runtime, meaning out-of-character Jed must have used this video to record this footage, funnily enough. But we get some digital interference letting us know that this is not the end. We get a flash of "you shouldn't have done that.net," and then some more feedback cuts in, and we get a new version of the website with the header "Eternity Project," as "Lost in My Thoughts" plays for the first time in the videos proper. We see the distorted Ben face from Phase 1, and we get a URL to the new site. The screenshots I'll be showing are thanks to the record of the site kept by MeCordYT in the Awakening Discord. Very gracious thanks to the preservation efforts, as it makes my job that much simpler. Okay, so we're going to do another site exploration here. On the front page, we see the Eternity Project homepage from the video. In the background is the ever-familiar track "Lost in My Thoughts," this time credited properly to Mobeats, the artist formerly known as Cheel. On the top, we have an About page, the Creed, the Realizations page, Environments, //cation, and Ascend. We'll tackle the homepage first and then move in that order. So we have a website for those who believe our loan is chosen, the same header as "you shouldn't have done that.net. Note, this is a legacy version of our Eternity Project website, meant for eternal educational uses only. Here you can see past iterations of the program and the different methods of recruitment that were utilized while the project is still in its infancy. While the domain has changed over the years, we have altered our messaging, and the project's success has become more and more mainstream. This is a website for those who have formed a spiritual connection with the moon and him, and recognize that we have been selected to perform miracles and bring enlightenment into this world. She has chosen us, and only us, to survive the upcoming apocalypse, because we have honored her and devoted ourselves to her. As we work to enforce her will, we grow together as a family and serve the greater good. We are the Moon's children. If you have found your way here, it is likely not by chance. There is a deeper calling that has brought you to us. In your heart, you know that there is something terribly wrong with this world. It is imperfect, full of disease, famine, rot, and suffering. We have the solution to this. You have likely been referred here by someone close to you, who has seen your own hidden potential in uncovering the truth of the world, and appreciates your keen desire for deeper meaning. The surface level is mundane to you. The trivial things that the average person spends a lifetime chasing seem unappealing to you. You may not yet know it, but you belong here with us. Listen to your soul and begin exploring this website with an open mind. You have been suffering in silence for so long. You owe it to yourself to get in touch with the real you. Return to your original naked purpose in the way that you were always meant to be. All of the Moon's children have been gifted spiritually. Each one of us possesses a deep limbic connection with one another that is all but inexplicable. The world you are forced to inhabit is a poison, meant to erode the wonderfully pure psyche of a human being with all manners of greed, gluttony, lust, envy, and filth. You are a being of pure potential and limitless possibility. They have deceived you into worshipping false idols, investing all your precious mental energy to anguish into irrelevant causes, and distract you from the true battle at hand. You are not meant to belong to this world, and your boundless energy and spirit are needed to help others. Have you ever felt isolated from your friends and family? How, despite being surrounded by a society claims that you should love and care for, you still cannot help but feel alone around them? This is from one of the most common traits everyone who finds this website shares, and it's because you operate on a different frequency vibration. It is no one's fault. There is no blame to go around. It is just how you were born. Now you will begin to see that you have a purpose. Now you will begin to see that you are destined for greater things. By discovering this website, you have taken another step closer. We know death, and we do not fear it, for we have created eternity. If you are visiting this website for the first time, you have come here for a reason. And even if that reason is not known to you, It no longer matters. You have been chosen by her. Like the force of magnetism, your spirit has been here. We will help you unlock it. We will help you become enlightened, and we will set you free from this world. If you believe you have gotten here in error, or you do not wish to become enlightened, leave immediately and forget about this website. Under no circumstances should you tell anyone about this, our purpose, or our mission. Nor is it likely that anyone would believe you. We have numerous ways of monitoring incoming and outgoing IP traffic, and we have relocated and dealt with dissenters before. Our outreach influence has grown tremendously since our family began decades ago. We are benevolent and our generosity knows no bounds, but we will do whatever we can to protect our brothers and sisters from those who wish to do us harm. If you have any foul intentions of harming this place, consider this your only warning. So, this seems to be a more in-depth version of the Moon Children's MO from You Shouldn't Have Done That, but it's all confirmed that this Eternity project is the true name and face of what we know as the cult of the Moon Children, even going so far as to utilize different names and domains. Similar to back in the old days, the Moon Children made mention of migrating to a new host website after the fall of the previous. There is one segment here that's interesting. This website here is meant for internal use only to see how recruitment happened in the days of the Eternity Project's infancy. This implies that the Moon Children guys was practically used as a front, as a way to connect with easy targets. Vulnerable kids and teens online looking for places to accept them. A cult front for whatever their true purpose is. Let's take a look at the About page for more. The Moon Children was one of the first iterations of the Eternity Project, originally founded by the moniker Kelbris in 1998. While not our organization's real name, the website operated under the guise of a cult worshipping a lunar goddess. This was specifically marketed towards disenfranchised and outcasted youths searching for a home. Our development team leaned into the supernatural aspects of the foundation of the pseudo-cult, as it took advantage of their naivete, sense of magical wonderment, and intrinsic desire for belonging of these children, having not yet been jaded by the realities of adulthood. It is not too dissimilar from the current fervor surrounding the Eternity Project, only now the results are actually tangible and have decades of testing behind them. At the time, current science believed, through much trial and error, that the only possible way to achieve a successful ascension was through a child applicant. They were believed to possess enough purity to have a strong enough spiritual release to be able to successfully ascend. As such, the project initially drew applicants from a pool of adolescents that had weak familial ties, ones whose disappearance would not draw a widespread and lengthy manhunt. The hypothesis was later debunked as advancements continued in the field, eventually proving that with proper preparations and team, there are not nearly as many obstacles that interfere with an individual's ability to ascend. We will always honor the human cost it took us to get here. We operate on a simple philosophy. The higher in the organization you are, the more privy you are to sensitive information. Seeing as how this now abandoned website serves as a breadcrumb for those seeking enlightenment, things have been simplified. Not all links are broken, but due to a merging of domains, many files have been lost. It has been our dream to save humanity, and over time we grew closer and closer to realizing our goals. We have been increasingly selective of membership over the years. Now, we reserve invites only to those who have proven to possess a sharp, intelligent, and pragmatic mind that seeks to bring out the peace from humanity's suffering at any cost. Pretty much confirming my previous thoughts. Now, let's move on to the Creed page. The Creed. Participants must be wearing their chosen mask. Oh, Father, I pledge to you. Oh, Mother, I give myself 100 times. May the moon illuminate our path. We bear our souls to you, to that which will bring the end. Empower us with your infinite grace. May we receive the greatest glory of all. May we ascend to the heavens themselves. We are the moon's children. We are mortal angels.
By my blood as I draw a tear, I dedicate myself to service. I sever all ties of my old life. Those who birthed me are meaningless. Those who raised me are hopeless. Those who loved me are worthless. I now wear this mask to symbolize my transformation. As a child learns to walk, so too will I learn to fly. With these words I pledge to myself, to my new family, that even though this mask may leave my face, the scars that symbolize my devotion will never fade. Now I am truly born. We do not fear death, for we have created eternity. We do not fear death, for we have created eternity. We do not fear death, for we have created eternity. We do not fear death, for we have created eternity. We do not fear death, for we have created eternity. We do not fear death, for we have created eternity.
And then at the bottom of this page is a very familiar phrase, men must become angels. Very interesting that we're getting this very message repeated when, I wonder if someone had a theory related to this message. Anyway, we're going back to the realizations page, which is the theories page from You Shouldn't Have Done That by Another Name, and more information. If we scroll down to the Luna theory, we see the following. Dating back to 1998, a moon child named Kelbris received several whispers from Luna herself before ascension. The Order, now known as the Family, was still young, and Kelbris was the first member to have been spoken to by her. Rather than ascending him, however, these whispers informed him of how the end will come about. The whispers were brief and vague, detailed below. They break free of the prison, engulf the world. Man will be betrayed by its minions, and I will be brought down from the sky, consuming everything. It's worth noting that the number 3 is reported by Kelbris to have been said numerous times, sometimes in between words, sometimes even between letters. It's always assumed that there was some significance that is yet to be found. Kelbris was later found electrocuted. Whether it was foul play or an intentional attempt at ascension was never determined. Nevertheless, he became the first to undergo ascension. Kelbris' discovery had made him the legendary figure within the Moon Children, and much of the family today is based off of example decades ago. It is theorized that his propensity for wanton violence and uncontrolled aggression could be due to the rudimentary way he was ascended. Others speculate that he slowly went insane, as the process was unrefined. The vessel he was put in was archaic, and it would have several years of failed attempts before another Moonchild would successfully join him, and several more that were able to connect to other worlds. He is revered internally as the Father, today for his invaluable contribution in showing us the path to eternity. His whereabouts are currently unknown. This is revealing. So we have double confirmation that Kelbris was the first person to ascend, and this piece here about his contribution almost implies that his ascension was a willing process, while the electrocution bit still seems to suggest it's unknown if he ascended willingly. Also, we get solid confirmation that Kelbris is the Father. Don't know why this has been a point of contention up to this point, but there it is. Next, we have a new theory to add to the mix, the Waking Hell prophecy. A more recent prophecy, brought on by the mass communication of the internet, believes that one exists in some kind of hell, whether that is self-imposed, simulated, or predestined. What you may perceive as a horrible tragedy, worldwide poverty, unjust slavery, and war, are merely just byproducts of the plane of existence that you reside in. When you're in this world, these two things are no more natural than the changing of the seasons. This world is one you will continue to be reborn into again and again, with not even death being a respite, until you find a way to transcend this reality itself. The truth is, you've lived this life before, you've died before, and you will continue to live it again and again until you're able to truly break free of what chains you to this plane of existence. We believe ascension is the answer, and it is our duty to enlist the help of those worthy to break free and to save themselves, even if by ascending we become observers to your plight. For example, I am clearly communicating with you, the reader. Yet, while you sit there reading this in your flesh and blood, on my end there's no human typing these words to you. You are communicating with me through the different dimension, and one I hope you decide to join. This apocalypse is one that extincts mankind itself, but not in a violent hellfire. Rather, it relieves the burden of its suffering and slowly transcends all brothers and sisters into the next plane of existence to flourish. There's a lot to unpack here, but this does line up with what we know about Ascension and also what Tyler talked about in Transmission.txt. These ideas make sense for a cult of this caliber, whether they're a cult by proxy or in actuality. Next up, we're going to visit the Environments page. A pop-up would appear when you click on the tab and it prompted for a password. This password was tricky, but with the collaboration of a few users on the Discord, they were able to crack it. Very big thanks to Silenced and Lego 1UP Mushroom for their talks on the spectrograms that led ZRegX and Amalgamated Reticula to trying out the password Wayward Horizon from the Look Beyond the Horizon spectrogram. Inside are 6 hexagons, each with Greek text written on them. From first to last, we have Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, and Zeta, the first 6 letters of the Greek alphabet. Interestingly enough, remember that the Chamber of Sages also contains 6 hexagons for the different stages. What exactly these are, we'll touch on shortly. But first, at the bottom, hidden in black text with some binary, which translates to monitor. Users found that the music embedded into the page was more than just Lost in My Thoughts, but also a track called Monitor in Binary. Around the 11-minute mark, there's a voice that whispers the numbers 4, 3, 6, and 7. Adding these numbers to the end of the URL brings us to a page with an image that's very reminiscent of the Father. Almost as if it were a transition image between what Kelbris looked like and the Father. And the background music is Lost in My Thoughts playing at the same time as the reversed Icona Canyon theme. Now, interestingly enough, if you download the Icona sound file and check out the metadata, you can find the following information. The associated text is Just Let Me Die. The artist is Ben. Album artist is Juiceable. The title is That Won't Do You Any Good, hehe. Track number is 2. The album is You've Met With a Terrible Fate, Haven't You? And the comment is My Eyes. They took my eyes. And original song Iconic Canyon from Majora's Mask. In the embed on the website, the album name was listed as They Lied, They Lied, They Lied. Next, we're heading over to Recation. Once we arrive, we see that the header is actually meant to be Relocation. Also, hidden in black is a very long string of binary that I'm not going to copy here, but I will show its translation. We get a conversation between 2 people named A and D. Now, for context of this conversation, I'm in the belief that this happens to be Abel and Drowned, the admin of YouShouldn'tHaveDoneThat.net. Growing increasingly worried about additional memory leaks from the main database into the shell site. It's just having a strange reaction to Alpha. All the other sites and worlds are fine. Some of it seems to be transmitting intermittent bits of data in real time. You should be used to this by now. I don't need to remind you what happens if Alpha has any kind of vulnerability and leaks into other environments. That's the crux of what I'm worried about. As I'm well aware, you don't have to explain it to me like I'm new. We'll continue to keep an eye on it. Again, why not just remove it entirely? This ecosystem is decades old. There's no telling what it would do to the rest of it if we were to plug it. As long as it continues to stay isolated, there won't be any issues. The reason why we're having this conversation is because it isn't isolated anymore. And I'm saying that Alpha has historically had memory leaks in some of our internal websites in the past, and it's affected absolutely nothing in the long run. Until it becomes an actual issue, it's a waste of resources and energy to worry about it. Alpha's mere existence is a house of cards waiting to fall. I'm petitioning the board to just rip the archaic band-aid off. Moral quandaries aside, the problem might fix itself in time. What in the world are you planning? Don't be so hasty. I have an idea. Worlds. Environments. I have other games for you to play. I used to be in more control over this world and others. This page with the 6 Greek hexagons, these are our worlds, and Majora's Mask, the world that we've been in, is World Alpha. meaning Abel's vested interest in World Alpha is something we can see on display even here, and that its architecture is quickly growing unstable due to what we saw on Kelbris' page in the Realizations tab. Going a step further, if we liken our battlefield from the Showdown, it seems the Chamber of Sages is almost like our hub world that all the other worlds are connected to. Next, and for the last of the visible pages, we have Ascend. On Ascension. So you've taken the first step in the inward journey of discovering yourself and decided to contact us. Or perhaps you're on the fence about becoming something greater than you could possibly imagine. And if so, let us present the reasoning that has drawn so many of us to conversion to Luna. Do you ever feel like life is just a dream? That you're sleeping this whole time waiting for something great to happen? Do you ever feel like you cannot relate to these human beings? That in this day and age of lewdness and vanity, it's simply disgusting to try to lower yourself to fit in? You do try to fit in, but it never really feels genuine, does it? Believe it or not, you have a purpose in life, and that purpose does not sit idly by while your talents and abilities are wasting away. Just by discovering us, Luna has guided you with her gentle hand and touched you. You were about to become part of something grander than you could possibly imagine. I myself was like you once, fearing the unknown, to leave behind everything and embrace eternity. I was more content to stay in the malaise of my mediocrity. You should feel blessed, as Ascension has come a long way since its inception. It has taken us several iterations to perfect our process, and every day we continue to improve it further. We often look back on our practices in the early days as barbaric, akin to medieval doctors utilizing leeches attempting to treat a malady. There were certainly dark days, as with developing any medical practice. While our greatest minds were still figuring out why certain people ascended and others did not, it's almost not even worth mentioning. But if you've heard rumors, you can rest easy. There is no more need for an adrenaline-fueled demise. It is unnecessary to have a subject's adrenal levels critical at the height of a calamitous event to capture the spiritual release necessary. Thanks to further advancements, Ascension has become much less painless, and today only needs a conscious decision and the right practitioner. I remember being so scared to leave, but I couldn't think of a single reason to stay. What did I really have? The world I left was falling down around me. I had no family to call my own, stuck in a dead-end job, no excitement, and smothered in crippling debt. If I kept my old life, the only path that lay before me was slaving away in a cubicle until I expired, making someone else money. But my story is unremarkable. There are dozens of other stories identical to mine. In my time of guiding others here, I've heard it all. I've heard every poor circumstance imaginable, every awful situation, every cruel cosmic joke, every unfairly dealt hand, and it has only strengthened my resolve that this is not the only best decision of my life, it's the best decision of anyone's life. I empathize with each and every one of you suffering right now. I used to know what it was like. It's hard to explain what it's like to someone who hasn't been ascended. I could tell you that after leaving my old body behind, I immediately discovered that it was not so bad. I could tell you that it was paradise, an infinite amount of possibility, an infinite amount of entertainment. The world's knowledge at your fingertips with infinite realities to explore it in. Why spend years of your life thrust into an unforgiving, cruel world just to suffer and eventually expire? To what end? To build character? To achieve some sense of purpose? To find some kind of meaning in the suffering? No. Humans were meant to be happy. Here I could live forever. Do whatever. Become anything. Live in whichever world I wanted to. And gradually, as the technology expanded, so too did the amount of worlds available to us. All of my old life, I felt like I was meant for great things. But as the course of time flowed and the years slipped away from me, I began to doubt myself with each passing year. I became jaded with life and apathetic, realizing the world never cared about the great things I should be able to do, and I bitterly resigned to hoping for something to save me. Ascension gave me the means to save myself, and I realized I was right all along. And it was the world that was wrong. If you know in your heart this resonates with you, then you know the choice you have to make. We are not yet at a point where invitations are freely given. We have made mistakes before with admission. Only the most adroit observers are given opportunities right now. Regardless, I hope to see you soon, and someday It makes my soul happy to know that I will see all of you. So, the way this passage is written is very familiar to me. It reminds me of Jadis. The choice of words used, the prosaic nature of it all. Even the reference to an old cubicle job, like how Jadis worked in IT, is revealed by Baker in Baker.text. Believe it or not, we have only a few pages left to discover on this site. By searching up certain characters, we can find their current statuses. Ben's page shows the Elegy statue as his avatar. It places his status in stasis, seemingly going off of what Traducible said in the Showdown.wmv about taking care of him. We see that a reboot is available, HND SHK is successful, Origin is HME02, HNDLR is Ben, and WRLD is Alpha. So, what does this mean? Reboot seems to be an action of restoring a person back into the game world. Ben being in stasis means he might be in some sort of reserves that's actively called on whenever the Elegy statue is summoned. HND SHK is interesting. It's most likely a shortened version of handshake, which in computer terms is the process of one computer establishing a connection with another computer or device. Handshake in this context might be establishing a connection with the overall network at large. Characters that act within the realm of their program commands have established a successful handshake. Ben here has not been given autonomy from the 4th day glitch, so his handshake status is successful. Origin here is interesting. We have HME02. The 02 seems to apply a year in which Ben entered the network, 2002. And as for HME, maybe home? Ben did have an accident in home. HNDLER seems to be the handler of the avatar, in this case being Ben. And then we have WRLD, meaning world. We can see Ben is in World Alpha, denoting that this is the world we've been seeing. Next, we're going to check up Traducible's page. Status shows active, reboot is ineligible, which makes sense since he's currently active as it is. Handshake is shown as successful, so he is a part of the network as I believed. His origin is KDNP 10, or otherwise known as Kidnap 2010, which is exactly when Traducible went missing. His handler is Traducible, and he's also in World Alpha. Next up, Sarah. Her status is deceased, but a reboot is showing as available. This harkens back to Matt's speech about death no longer existing in this world. There's always another reboot. The handshake is shown as being unsuccessful, whether that's due to her own will or our influence. It seems that she's still Sarah. Her origin is shown as Hotel, meaning the ethereal hotel, and her handler is Sub-423, harkening back to the fact that inside the hotel she was designated as Subject 423. She's also in World Alpha. And speaking of Matt, he has a page here as well. His status is shown here as 3 question marks, designating we have no idea where he is since he vanished. He's ineligible for a reboot, implying he's still within the world itself. A handshake has been unsuccessful, meaning that he is separate from the network, and not being used by the father or anything like that. His origin is you shouldn't have done that, implying that he was digitized through the website or his dealings on the website. His handler is Matt, and his world is Alpha. And finally, we are able to find data on Rosa. Her status is unknown, she's ineligible for a reboot, her handshake has been unsuccessful so far, and at least she seems to not be back in her captured state. Her origin is KDNP09, or Kidnap 2009. This is the year that the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines video, Rosa, is uploaded to the Traducible YouTube channel. Her handler is Rosa, and she's also from World Alpha. And finally, we have a final page titled Members that is text similar to the 4367 page that just says, "They lied, they lied, they lied." As players continued to dig into the site, warnings about accessing the private material began going out, and the site became more corrupted. It continued until it covered a majority of the homepage, until we got a 404 page with the text, "You should have listened." This new website has thrown a lot of new information into the mix, and it seems like until we find a way to reboot Sarah, our updates will be taking place on the website in place of a new video. But we shall investigate all of that and the rest of this game next time. as this video has gone on for far too long. This video was initially only going to cover up to the Predecessor, yet here we are. It's been good to be back, but as for me, I'm going to go spend some more time working on some other projects. The next video in this series will come out after the game ends, and we'll attempt to tie up any loose ends that we have. But I do have a feeling that after the conclusion of Ben Drowned, we'll be seeing a lot more from this world from Alex. Until then though, guys, feel free to hop in the Awakening Discord and join in on this wild ride as we come to the end. Feel free to stop by here and also check out some of my other videos. I've got a Duel Link series running currently, some Fire Emblem videos I'm trying on posting, and I'm even doing the analysis on another ARG that's close to my heart, the Lemnis Gate series that was made in preparation for the Somnium Files. With that, check you guys out next time.